Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Watch News Weekly. This is a special breaking news episode. I sound like a newscaster at this point, but we bring it to you a couple of days early, and rightfully so. Big news just hit the market. Rolex purchased Bucherer, announced that they're purchasing Bucherer, which means to me, well, number one, I want to discuss it as fast as possible, give you my opinion, and get your take on it, because your feedback to me in the comments means just the same, because I love to get first, second, third, or 100th opinion on a matter, which I deem is very, very important, because you have an event that just took place that could potentially affect the secondary market, the primary market, the watch market overall. You have a largest company out there buying one of the largest Rolex retailers, which to me basically means, or at least is the way I read it, Rolex just stepped into the world of authorized dealers, right? By purchasing one of the largest Rolex retailers out there. Just so happens to be, it's also the one company that first rolled out the Rolex CPO program. Now, does that mean Rolex was using Bucherer as a guinea pig to see if the CPO program is going to work, and kept an eye on it, deemed that it's working? Okay, seems like it's a good idea, seems like it's working. We're just going to buy them and try to control the market? First and foremost, again, in my opinion, this is Rolex flexing their muscles, right? But what are they doing it for, right? Because if there's an action, obviously there's a reasoning behind it, and maybe it's to solve the waitlist issue, control the flow of new product better. Because let's face it, there's going to be a huge bias when it comes to allocation now. I mean, I'm Company X, just bought a company that sells my product. I manufacture the product. This company sells my product. But there are other dealers out there selling that same product. Who am I going to favor in terms of allocation? I think the answer is pretty obvious from a business perspective. And would I blame them for doing it? Absolutely not. Now, or maybe they think they can effectively control the secondary pre-owned market, which at this point has become bigger than the primary, regardless of what any big analytic company out there will tell you. They don't have access to gray market data. They don't see what happens on a day-to-day basis. And therefore, in my opinion, the secondary market is actually already bigger. Now, let me put my 2 cents in on this in regards to who will suffer mostly. Well, it's not going to be the big ADs. Initially, it's going to be the smaller stores that carry the Rolex line, perhaps a single store, right? Somebody that has just one store happens to carry the Rolex line. Because again, as I mentioned earlier, their allocation will not be the same. This will actually fuel the gray market even further. These guys will do their best to squeeze every last dollar out of their allocations. What do I mean by that? Well, if I used to get 20 GMTs that I would sell on to actual clients that are walking in, making my 37% margin. Now I'm only getting 2 of this. I'm going to be more inclined to sell those GMTs to guys like Rowan from Luxury Bazaar or any other gray market dealer, and making a higher margin, making up for the money that I used to make, right? In the very least, right? Of course, the bigger chains, no doubt, will also see a decrease in sale. Again, all due to less of an allocation. And ultimately, history is going to repeat itself. Much like AP that started this whole boutique only and allocation game via the genius mind of Francois, whom everybody laughed at the time, by the way. Well, no one is laughing now, because in fact, it's only the ADs that lost the AP line that are crying now. Every brand since then has now followed suit years later. And the end result, they cut out the middleman, and looks like Rolex set out on the same path. So what's the game here? You purchase Bucherer, maybe a few more big chains, you squeeze out the little guys, and now you're in control of the brand new goods market, brand new pieces. And you can produce more watches because you control the production. And ultimately, you can make any Rolex available at list to anyone that walks into one of your stores. Well, then the question arises, what happens to the Rolex CPO program? This was a big, big deal, right? By making new Rolex accessible, you will ultimately lower the prices below the new selling price. And what that will do is make the brand lose its appeal. Therefore, other brands will benefit if they stay the current course. Let's face it, we all want something that we can't have. And honestly, I think this may take us back to the days I started in this industry, when you were able to get pretty much any Rolex, minus the Daytona, of course, at a discount. And anything pre-owned was even cheaper. If we get there again, I'm afraid the cost associated with taking a Rolex through the service and making it officially Rolex CPO will not leave enough meat on the bone for Rolex or Bucherer, who they now own, because when all is said and done, people will just opt out for a new watch, as the price difference will not be that significant, right? these companies, these bigger companies, they work on certain margins, right? In fact, as an example, we all saw the internet screaming when the Rolex CPO rolled out about a year ago. This will kill the gray market. Well, what happened? In fact, the opposite. Everyone laughed at the prices posted online as they were at least 30% higher than any gray market price. Furthermore, the economical landscape post-COVID made prices drop somewhat reasonable level, although it's still over MSRP. At least we're not sitting at 3x to 4x on certain watches. But yet, the Rolex CPO prices did not adjust. Why is that? Well, first of all, the time and effort it takes inside of big corporations to change things takes a lot of time. And again, referring back to what I said when we're talking about not enough meat on the bone, there's a certain margin that's expected because again, these bigger companies, they carry big overhead. Believe me, a rent on Fifth Avenue in New York City is not very, very cheap. When you ask, the answer is really simple. No big chain or single AD or manufacturer out there has any experience in a secondary market. They don't have the logistical process in place or the staff to do what is most important in order to succeed. And that is the good old saying, the money is in the buy, or i.e. the success is in the buy. And that's what stands true for the secondary market in any industry. Let me leave you guys with this. We've seen something similar happen before, granted on a smaller scale. It was Audemars Piguet that tried buying back pre-owned watches or taking them in trades in their boutiques when customers were purchasing new watches. To be fair, this program was a little bit different the approach was a little bit different because they were taking those trades and selling them off to the secondary market. Guys like us, for example. I'm not saying it was us, I'm just saying guys like us. But ultimately that program failed and the program was shut down. Now, how far will the Rolex CPO program go? Time will show. Perhaps this is something that's a temporary thing to fix the primary market. I don't know. I can only speculate. But I do know one thing for certain. The one analytic that Rolex, Bucherer, or any fancy consulting company out there that pulls this data that we see posted in the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg News, et cetera, is that how many consumers in the last 3 years, let's say during the craze, or 4 years, have purchased a watch for the sole purpose of reselling it for a profit, number one. And further to that, how many consumers went out there and purchased this Rolex where the number one thought in the back of their head was, A, this is a good investment, okay? I'm buying this as an investment. I'm buying this because this is something that's gonna hold value and go up in value, right? These are the things that a lot of consumers have gotten used to, right? Now, if you take those customers away, but whatever action you put forth, you will ultimately lower your sales by a pretty big chunk. And then what happens? Then the prediction is simple. We'll go back to when I started 20 years ago, where Rolex was that first money watch, really not that big a deal. Again, going back to what I said earlier, losing its appeal. And consumers will look elsewhere for the next big thing because thanks to our financial media outlets and the COVID craze, we have completely gotten away from what I've preached for years. And that is watches are not an investment, but an expensive toy first and foremost. I would hate to see this happen. Rolex has always been number one in my eyes and the eyes of many others. They're the biggest, they're the baddest, but perhaps instead of buying a major retailer, okay, maybe they should have looked at purchasing someone in the gray market, perhaps a company like ours. I will leave you with that, guys, and I urge you to comment your thoughts below. Again, this is my opinion. This is my quick take on things, sort of a brain dump, if you will. I just kind of rattle it off the top of my head here. But again, do comment below. Let me know your thoughts. I appreciate you tuning in, and I will see you next week on the next episode of Watch News Weekly.